you can rejoin. So yes, we are into the practical session now, and we are on experiment number 2, wherein we are done with the Python program to implement the loop, and then today we'll be first completing the Python program to implement the functions. We have started with function, and then we'll jump to the third experiment, that is write Python program to implement classes, objects, static methods, and implementation of class. Okay, so let's start with the implementation of functions in Python. And before that, let me remind you once again that a mini project, this one, a mini project is a very important aspect of your course, this course, and it carries 10 marks. You must be knowing about it. Now, what's happening that in the last session, I have already conveyed you that you need to submit the mini project title for your mini project. The group would remain same. So whatever groups you have for your fourth semester mini project, the same group you will be continuing with, and you need to only submit me the title. Not submit the title within the said deadline, then I will assign you the title group wise. Fine. So please do not compel me for that. You can give me any title which you are going to implement using Python. It can be using very native Python in the form of some scripting, or it can be by using can be by making use of database and Python, or it can be even with the help of Django, or it can be by making use of NumPy or the Pandas library. Okay, so you have a lot many options with you, and out of all these options, you need to think of a problem statement, you need to think of a project title, and you need to submit me that title. You can mail me the title, or you can directly WhatsApp me along with your group details. I hope that point is clear. Now let us talk about this implementation of a function or writing your own functions in Python. So we started with this in session 6. So what I would be doing, I would make this session 6 as our exp 202.py was fine. So this is my experiment second, and this is a program exp sorry 2.2. So exp 2.2, and this is implementation of functions in Python. So in this program, we have already seen the implementation of a fact function, where we are finding the factorial of a given number. Now, we know that in Python, if you want to define a function, you need to make use of a def keyword. So def space, the name of a function, and then the argument list, comma separated arguments. Now here you need not have to specify the type of the argument, which we used to do in C, C++, and Java, because Python is dynamically typed. So since Python is a dynamically typed programming language, you need not have to specify the type. So this simplifies your task. So when I say here num, I can pass it a number of type integer, I can pass it a number of type float, or if I can even pass a string. So it's up to us. How do we want to make use of that data or that argument? Now, if I want to pass multiple arguments, so it would be comma separated num1, comma num2, comma num3, and so on. Or in general, argument 1, comma, argument 2, comma, argument 3, and so on. If you want to pass n number of arguments in a Python function, then that can also be done. So for that, you can make use of asterisk or star, so star num. So this num becomes something like a list, and then you can pass as many arguments you want to. If you want to pass no argument, you can pass 0 argument with this function. If you want to pass only 1 argument, you can pass only 1 argument, or 2 argument, or 3 arguments, or n number of arguments. Okay, so that way you can implement a function, or you can write a function to handle n number of arguments. And if you do that, then num of 0, num square bracket 0 would give you the first argument, num square bracket 1 would give you the second argument, num square bracket 2 would give you third argument, and so on. Num square bracket minus 1 would give you the last argument. So now we are not doing that. And then one more thing about functions in Python. A Python function can return multiple values. So if you want to return 2 values, 3 values, or 4 values, so that can be done with the help of a single return statement. So return, then value 1, comma, value 2, comma, value 3, and so on. Or you can return a collection of values also. So that is possible in Python. And then finally, you have the function body. And we make use of indentation as usual. So colon, and then your function body or the code of the function, and then the last statement is return. If you are returning anything, if you don't want to return, then you can avoid the return statement. So this is a fact function, and then we had the main function. So in the last session, we had a discussion that now onwards, what we would be doing, we will not be keeping any code directly executable. So we'll be keeping all the code into the Python program inside a function. So there won't be any free flowing code or anything like that. So your entire code is kept inside some function. So we have fact function, then we have main function, then inside the main function we have our entire coding. Now, unless and until you call the main function, you cannot execute this program. What I mean to say, it will be interpreted, but it will not be executed because the code is inside the functions. So we need to call the function. So we'll be calling the main function. And how we are calling the main function? We are calling the main function conditionally. And what is the use of this condition? This is a name variable, a global variable, and which stores the name of a module. By default, the name of a module is the Python program name. So if my program name is exp202.py, so the module name for this Python script would be exp202. So exp202 is the module name. Okay. Now, when I execute this script, exp202, then what would happen that the name variable would be set to a value dunder main, double underscore main, double underscore, that is called dunder main. So dunder name would be set to dunder main if I'm executing this script. If I'm importing this script somewhere else, so this name of this module would be set to its module name. So this name would be exp202. Okay. So what I mean to say here in this condition, if this script is executed by itself, then only call the main function. If this script is not executed itself by itself and instead it is imported somewhere else, so do not call the main function, because in that case, the name variable of this module would be having a value exp202. So the main function will not be called if this is getting imported somewhere else. We are calling the main function conditionally, and when we execute this script, then only the main function will be called and this program would be executed. Now let us execute this. Now this exp202 is inside the program folder or the program directory, which is inside this 2021 SBLC. So I move to that directory. Then exp202. It asks for the number, enter the number. I say it's 6, and it says factorial of 6 is 720. We want to continue. I say yes, I want to continue. And this time I would be finding the factorial of 9. It gives me the factorial of 9. It asks me again, do you want to continue? I say no, I don't want to continue. And my program terminates. So this is the code which we have done into this program. So inside the main function, we have an infinite loop. And inside it, we are asking for the number, enter the number. Then we are printing the factorial of this given number. And here we are calling the fact function for the given number. Then we are asking the user whether you want to continue. If the user says yes, then we go back to the while loop. If the user says no, so if it is capital N or small n, then only we are breaking the infinite loop. Okay. So until and unless the user says capital N or small n, we'll keep on executing this infinite loop. Now, what we'll be doing, we'll be adding one more function. So suppose we want to display a Fibonacci series up to the given number. So let's define a function for this. So def Fibo, and we'll be passing a number. And till that number, we'll be displaying the Fibonacci series. So this is a doc string. You must be knowing about this as we had a discussion. Doc string is used to give the information about the function, what the function is doing. So the doc string can be seen with the help of dunder doc variable associated with that function. So if I display fact for this function fact, if I display fact dot dunder the doc, then that will display or that will return me the doc string of this function. If the doc string is defined, if the doc string is not defined, then it will return none. So suppose we do not define any doc string over here, and I go on for the code of Fibonacci series. Let's make use of a while loop, and let's keep it simple. Then we can optimize it. C equals to A plus B. Here I say while C is less than or equal to N, I would be displaying the value of C. And I don't want to go to the next line. So I would say N equals to nothing. And before displaying this C, or after displaying C, I would display a tab space. Then I need to exchange the values of, I need to reset the values of A and B. So A would be set to B, and B would be set to C. Then again, C would be having a new value, that is C equals to A plus B. And this would keep on going. And here I would be saying display A, then a tab space, then display B, then a tab space. And here I can, no. Okay, so done. I think that's done. We need not have to do anything else. And we are not returning anything from this Fibo function. So we can simply call the Fibo function. And here itself we can do that. So first, let me display the factorial, and then let me display the Fibonacci there itself. Fibonacci series up to n is Fibo n. Okay. Okay. So now let's execute our code. say 6. Oh, name n is not defined. This is num, not n. Sorry for this. Oh. So it is displaying a series, but we got some display problems, and this is because of our code. When I call the Fibo function, what's happening that when I call the Fibo function, it goes to the Fibo function and then it displays the thing and then it is coming back and then it is displaying this. So can you tell me what's happening over here? This is interesting thing to learn something. Now what would happen? This new line, after this one, we are switching to this next line. Now this would be removed. So now for the next execution, we'll be getting 0, 1, then 1, 2, 3, 5, if I give an input as 6. And then after that, Fibonacci series up to 6 is none. So you need to tell me why this is happening. I give the input same, and yes. It says factorial of 6 is 720, and then it says 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, and then after 5 it is displaying Fibonacci series up to 6 is, and then it is saying me none. So can you tell me what's happening? Please see here very carefully. The first printf, the first print statement, factorial n is fact n, which is getting displayed perfectly. Factorial of 6 is 720. Done. Then the next one is print up to n is Fibo n. So Fibo function is called, but here what's happening? This Fibonacci series up to 6 is. This is not getting displayed first. Instead, we are getting the Fibonacci series displayed first. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. Then after that, we are getting this Fibonacci series up to 6 is. And now since there is nothing to be displayed, so it is saying us none. So can you tell me what's happening? Now this is interesting to learn. So tell me fast. Please, either unmute your mic and tell me the answer, or you can simply post your answer into the chat box. Or I should call someone. Function is called before printing. So Anna says that function is called before printing. How it's happening then? For factorial, this is getting displayed first, factorial of n, and then the function is called. And here for second print, Fibonacci series up to n, for this only function is called first. Here the function is not called first. Here also the sequence is same, na? Display something and then call the function. So this is getting done. If you see the output, this one. But for the second print, same idea, display something and then call Fibonacci. So here only that content is getting displayed first and then this is getting done. Chalo, fast. Daniel says print statement, wait for the function to return and then it prints. But Fibo function isn't returning anything, so it prints none. That's perfectly fine. It's not returning anything, so it prints none. And then why the Fibo print is getting done first and then your print is getting done. What I mean to say, Fibo is printing the Fibonacci series. So that is getting printed first and then your print statement constant string is getting printed. Why that is happening? Yes, Daniel, you are to the point. That is fine. Any other student want to answer? Hmm? Okay. Aditi Patil, can you answer this? Aditi Patil, are you there? Yes. So can you answer why this is happening? Or Rana Sansari? Because in Fibo we have print statement, so it gets printed first and print in main. Daniel says because in Fibo we have print statement, so it gets printed first and main will come Fibo and then it prints the whole statement with returned value. Again, he is right, but he's missing only one point. Why it is happening so? What kind of data structure has this kind of functionality? You have studied data structure. So your print basically makes use of that data structure. It makes use of stack. So because of that data structure, what's happening that whatever is pushed last, that will be popped first, in short. Last in, first out. Okay. So your print constant string, this is pushed, then you can say this is pushed, then this, then this. Then when this is called, if any value is returned, so that value is restored there. But here the value is not returned, and instead what's happening that your printing is getting done into the Fibo. So here, when the function is called, so all those printing takes place, and then your this printing happens at the end. So Fibonacci series up to this is happening at the end. Okay, up to n is none. So what we can do, we can switch this. Sorry. There are two possibilities. Either shift this entire thing over here. So the entire printing would be done over here. So up to num is and then over here we'll be simply calling the Fibo function. can do this. Let's see. So yes, it says factorial of 6 is 720 and Fibonacci is up to 6 is this. And do you want to continue on the same line because yeah, the end is this one. So I can go for a blank then. Fine. So factorial of 6 is 720 and Fibonacci is up to 6 is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, like this. And do you want to continue? If I say yes, and this time I want factorial of say 50. So factorial of 50 is this, and Fibonacci is up to 50 is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. Then do you want to continue? I say no. Another possibility is what? Okay, instead of displaying anything into this Fibo function, you can return the entire Fibonacci series. So what can be done? You can put up the Fibonacci series into a container or into a collection. That collection can be, for example, a list, and then you can return a list. Fine. So that way also you can do. And for me, I would say that is a recommended way, or it should be a recommended way, because whenever you write a function which is going to be used by any programmer or any program, so it is expected that inside the function you should minimize your input output statements. So the input output statements inside a general function should not be much. It should be taken to 0. And that's the reason. Otherwise, we can check for. Otherwise, we can ask for the data inside the function itself. Why do we need to pass the data? So this can also be done inside the function itself. But we pass the data so that function should not make use of the input statement. Likewise, the function should not make use of a output statement. So whatever printing is required, whatever the input is required, that should be done into the driver code. I mean to say something like a main function, and your reusable code should not have those kind of input output functionality. They should be independent of input output functionality. They can be anywhere. They can be into another program, they can be into another module, they can be into another package, they can be onto another machine altogether. So when that is the case, you cannot perform input output statement, because that would be done with respect to that machine on which that function is existing. That function is, so when your function is taken to a level of API, so there we make all these input output statement to a 0 level. We do not have any kind of input output statement. So when you keep on writing your own function, which can be used as a library at any point of time, so it is highly recommended that your functions should not have input output statement. So that you can do, you can simply make use of a list, and then you can append the list. So this C, instead of getting printed, it's getting appended into a list, and then you are returning a list. If you want to have that function, we can have that also. So let me call it and I say my result equals to, I would put 0 and 1 into that, 0, 1, which are A and B. This is not required, and this is also not required. And here I can say dot append, and I would be appending C. After this, I would say return result. So now result equals to 0, 1, and then we have value of C. So this is Fibonacci series, a list of Fibonacci series numbers up to the given number. And when I call this Fib 1, I can call this with print. So now I can say 50, sorry, Fibonacci series up to n. Here I can call Fib 1 and I can pass n. Okay, so let's see. And it would be displayed in the form of a list into the square brackets. I want it up to say 6. So Fibonacci series up to 6 is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay. And yes, I want to continue, and I say this time I want it up to 50. So Fibonacci series up to 50 is this one. Okay, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. So this way you can do the thing, and it is recommended to do it this way. So you can minimize the input-output statements in your functions. So this is your program EXP202. And now we can switch to the third experiment, which is about your object-oriented programming in Python. How to define a class, how to define a method, how to define an instance variable, how to define a class variable, method, what is a static method, what is a constructor. So we'll see all those things into the object-oriented programming using Python. Before that, is there any query into this? Do you want to ask anything? Yes. Please let me know if you have any query so far. Farhan says no. Any other student? Okay, so let's jump to the third experiment. Let me close all these files. This was a function sample where we imported the fact function from the file session 6, and then we used it. Okay, so this is how you can reuse your code. And in the last session, there was a query that how to make use of the functionality of a program which is defined somewhere else, which is written somewhere else, or which is present in some other directory. So there you can make use of packages. Packages are a simple thing in Python. And for example, your 202, EXP202. Now this has got three functions, fact, Fib1, okay, and then your main function. Now this program, or I can say this module is present in the directory program, this program's directory. Let me show you here. So I got my directory 2021. You can see it clearly SBLC. In this directory, I have a programs directory. Inside this programs directory, I have all my programs. So EXP202, EXP201, 301, 102, and so on. Now, what I want from EXP202, I want to import something. This is this can act as my module. And then this folder, this directory programs, this can act as a package. There is one simple additional requirement that your package should have init.py, one Python file or Python script, and that can be empty also. If you have it, fine. If you do not have it, fine, no issue. But if you want to really explore the packages in better way, so you should have that file. Now we do not have that over here. So we have programs directory. Now what I will be doing, I come back one level. So this is my programs. And then here I can have one Python program. And in that program, I want to make use of the functionalities or make use of the functions which are defined in EXP202, which is present in this programs directory. Okay. So let me come back over here. And what I do, I close this, I close this. Let me keep only 202 and let me create a new file and let me first save it. Now where I will be saving it. See here clearly. I am not saving this program which I am creating now inside my programs directory. I am coming back from program. I am coming one level up, and here suppose I make .py or sample.py, and this into this sample.py. What I want to do, I want to make use of the functionality of functions which are defined in EXP202. Say the fact function and figure function. So I want to call the fact function. So first I will be asking for the number from the user. So I would say n equals to input, enter the number. Let me convert it into integer. And now I want to call this. So I would say print factorial of n is, I want to call that function fact of n. Now when I try to do this, see here, I do not have the fact function which is defined in sam.py. I'm trying to execute sam.py. I'm coming out of programs, and here when I list directory, I have this sam.py. I want to execute sam.py. I would say Python sam.py. It says me enter the number, I say py, and then it gives me an exception. What is the exception? Name error. And what kind of name error? The name fact is not defined. The Python doesn't know what is fact inside sam.py. Without defining fact, we are just trying to use it. Now, we don't want to define fact inside sam.py. We have fact inside this exp202.py, and we want to import it. So what we'll be doing, we'll be simply saying from my program name is exp202 from 202 import fact, so that I can use fact. Okay, so this is what I am saying. From exp202 import fact. Now let's try to execute. The moment I save this, it says us what? The moment we try to execute it, it says us that module not found error. Now the error has been changed. What it says 202. So what it's trying to do into the current directory, it is trying to find the program exp202. But that program is not present in the current directory, it is present in programs directory. So the module is not found. Now, what I will be doing, instead of writing this exp202, I will say it is present in programs package dot exp202. From this import fact. Okay, let us try to execute. I ask for the number, I say 7. Semi-factorial of 7 is 5040. Okay, so this is how you can simply make use of package. You can uh, reuse the functions which are defined in other programs in your program. Fine. So this is how a dot operator can be used. Now coming back to our third experiment and exp301. Program to implement class, objects, and static methods. In Python, when we want to define a class, so we need to make use of the class keyword, space, and then your class name. Class keyword, space, class name, and then colon. Okay. So after colon, your class definition starts. So this is my class keyword, and this is my class name. The convention for the class name is that every word should start with a capital letter. Okay, every word should start with a capital letter. So this S is capital. That's the reason. So class, student, and then colon, and then the name of then the definition of a class. The way we have docstring for the function, the same way we have docstring for the class. So immediately at the beginning of the definition of a class, we can have a docstring for the class as a multi-line constant string. So triple quotes, within two triple quotes, you can write the definition or you can write the description of your class. So a student class to maintain students information. It has class variables and also instance variables. Now in Python, when we have a class, so we can have instance variables also and we can have class variables. Okay. The class variables are the variables which are common for all the instances. Now I am directly going to the explanation part because I assume that you already know the fundamentals of object-oriented programming. It has been done to you already. So you know the fundamentals of object-oriented programming. You know what is class, what is object, what are instances, what do you mean by instantiation, what is the use of construct, and so on. So what we'll be doing, we'll be directly jumping to the important discussion part instead of of object-oriented programming. So you have a class variable, you have an instance variable. Now the difference between instance variable and a class variable in a Python class is that a common, I repeat, a common copy of a class variable are maintained for all the instances. Instance means an object. And a separate or the own copy is maintained for the instance variable for each and every instances. So every instance, every object will be having its own state or its own set of variables, and those are called instance variables. And when we talk about class variables, so class variables are the variables which are common or which are shared of that class or by all the instances of that class. So in our student class, what we are doing, we are making number of courses and credits as a class variable. Because what do we understand that all the students of a specific class will be sharing the number of courses. Number of courses would be common for all, number of credits would be common for all. Okay. So then we are setting the values also, default values. So number of courses, it is dynamically typed. So I need not have to specify the type. So number of courses equals to a default value of 5. Credits equals to a default value of 25. Both the variables are class variables. Then comes the first method of my class, or I can say the first function of my class. Def keyword, the name of a function or the name of a method set well. Then there is the first thing called self. Now this self can be any name, but it's a convention to keep it self. Now the way you have this in Java, you can think of the same way as self in Python. So now the self is a reference which will be always referring to the invoking object. The object which is invoking this function, which is calling this function, the self keyword or the self word would be referencing to that object. So in short, in Python, whenever you call a class method or whenever you call a method of a class or a function of a class with the help of its object, the first argument is the reference to that object. I repeat, the first argument is always a reference to that object. And this is implicit. You need not have to pass it explicitly. I repeat, it is implicit. You need not have to pass it explicitly. Then comes the remaining arguments, whichever you want to pass to this method. So roll number, name, address, and mobile. So if you see here, total you have 5 arguments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But this is implicit. So it means that if I have for the student class, and when I call this method for the student class, I would be writing s1 dot set well. So that s1 is passed implicitly, and this self is referring to that s1. Okay, and these are passed explicitly. So when I call set well for an object s1, I will be passing only 4 arguments. The first argument would become roll number, the second argument would become name, the third argument would become, the fourth argument becomes mom or the mobile. Now I am setting the properties. So method to set the properties of the object. What this method is doing, the docstring of the method says that method to set the of the object. Then I am setting the property self. As I said you, it's a reference to the calling object. I need to make use of that reference, self dot operator, and then the roll number equals to roll number, this roll number. Self dot name equals to this name. Self dot address equals to this address. Self dot mobile equals to this mobile. Now this variables, self dot roll number, self dot name, self dot address, self dot mobile. These are called instance variables. I repeat, these are called instance variables. Okay. So every object will be having its own instance variables. Every object will have its own copy of instance variables, and class variables are the variables which are shared. Now there can be a question where we are defining this variable or where we are declaring this instance variable. So as you all know, in Python you need not have to do that. We directly initialize the variable and we use it. Okay, and that's what we are doing it inside the function. So inside the function directly we are initializing the instance variable. So roll number equals number, name equals to name, address equals to address, mobile equals to mobile. Then the second method is to get the values. There must be one argument which is self by default, and then I'm displaying the address of this self. So print self is at id of self, and then we are returning what we are returning self number to get the values or to get the properties of my object. So I'm returning the roll number, self dot roll number, then self dot name, self dot number of courses, self dot credits, and self dot mobile. Now out of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out of these 5 variables, the 2 variables are class variables, number of courses and credits. And the 3 variables are the instance variables, which will be maintained with each and every object. Then we have something called as class method, then static method, whenever you have this at the rate, so at the rate is used to specify decorator. It is used to specify decorator. We'll see what do you mean by decorator. So class method is one of the decorators. Static method is one of the decorators. So now, for time being, just concentrate on this class student, the class variables, and then the methods set well and get well, and then the instance variables. Now inside our main, we are declaring the object of my student class, and then I'm setting the values of the s1 dot set values, some values, and then we are displaying the values. So s1 dot get values, it will get the values. Then s2 equals to student, declaring another object of the student class, then setting the courses. So we will see the execution of this. We'll have some changes and we'll see the execution of this in the next session, because your time is getting over. If you have any query, please let me know.